Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. Thanks for checking it out if you're new. Doctor Who Series 14, Episode 6, Rogue. Boy, do we have a lot to talk about this week, so let's get right on into it. So this episode takes place in the year 1813 and during a ball of some sorts. I don't know if we ever get a clear reason why, but so, in the opening scene, we see that there is an alien, which we'll later learn is a Chulder, is taking the place of a human. And during this initial attack on this human, the Chulder remarks that now I get to be the bad one. And at first, when I first watched this episode, I thought there was going to be a bit of a deeper meaning behind that. Like, this was a nice Chulder who's gone bad. But what it actually is, as we learn later, is the Chulder are cosplaying or role-playing. The episode uses cosplay, but I'll touch on it a little later where I feel like it's more role-play than cosplay. But yeah, so this episode we're dealing with these shape-shifting aliens known as the Chulder. Actually, I don't know if it's ever clearly stated if they're aliens or if they're also supposed to be, like mystical, magical beasts like everything else supernatural that we've been encountering this season. But it's kind of crazy that we got an entire shapeshifter episode, and during which there was never any question of who is who, who is the shapeshifter. Like, usually you have the hijinks where the shapeshifter is among us and is, killing off people, and you've got to figure out who it is. A murder mystery. Versus here, we know from the start which characters are the Chulders. And we just watch how the Doctor, Ruby, and as we'll meet him, Rogue, encounter these creatures. So, the Doctor and Ruby are here for fun, The Doctor makes that clear, that this is not a work trip, this is not some strange signal going off. No, this is purely just one of their adventures in time, which, again, harkening back to Boom, it seems like the Doctor and Ruby aren't. I wonder if it's a budgetary constraint, because they're not getting very cosmic with their journeys. I guess during the first season of New Who, when the Ninth Doctor was venturing with Rose, they mainly stayed on Earth. It wasn't until Tenet during the second season that Rose went off and started going all over the galaxy. But during which the Doctor remarks, Ruby's like, how do I know how to ballroom dance? And the Doctor points out that he's given her psychic earrings that I would assume either, actually we know later, they're connected to the TARDIS. They teach you how to dance. They have a combat mode. And so I wish we had more of these fun adventures this season. Like, as I've said every video, this season is way too short. I don't still have a clear grasp, I don't feel, on what journeys Ruby and the Doctor have or have not gone on. Was Boom the only alien planet she's been to, and now Ruby's like, nope, not doing it. I guess there was the planet last episode during Dot and Bubble, but we really weren't clear where that's supposed to be. I don't believe it's Earth. And while they are here for fun, unfortunately, work comes a-calling as some type of sonic sonar interference, starts messing with Ruby's earrings. And the Doctor, using the sonic, which it appears is a new sonic, maybe I'm wrong with this, but this one, at least I thought, looked pink in his hands, though it might just be the red one that we saw earlier in the season with different lighting. I would love the idea of the Doctor having a new, because the Doctor has always been very much so a straightforward, this is the character, he wears the same outfit every day like a cartoon character, and he has his sonic screwdriver. And they are already breaking that kind of boundary by having Ncuti Gatwa change his clothes every episode. And so I would love, because we know that the TARDIS can create new sonics, that's where the Doctor has gotten his sonics from each time he needs a new one. I would love it if the TARDIS just keeps, spitting these things out, or at least spitting new casings out. I don't know about a whole new sonic, but it would be cool if with the Doctor's, the Doctor's trying to coordinate his sonics with his outfits. and eventually the Sonic leads him up to Rogue. But before we can get to Rogue, Ruby notices a strange painting over on the wall, and this is a painting of the Duke's late mother, and you might notice that the Duke's mother is Susan Twist. This is her first absence, you could say, this season. She's been in every episode this season. However, with this one, she's just a picture, like she's just a painting. Susan Twist isn't there presently at the moment. And we've seen now that, yes, next week we might get our answers about Susan Twist, because next week we will be going back to present day, where we'll encounter Unit and we'll encounter present day Susan Twist, and that's all in the next time on. We're not talking about that episode right now. I've brought up Susan Twist too much every episode. Also, during this sequence, Ruby makes the remark that, oh, this is so Bridgerton. I, myself, have never watched Bridgerton, but I get the idea of it. It's the romance, will they, won't they, with the 1800s ballroom setting. And during which the orchestra is anachronistic, aka it doesn't actually, match with the time period, because they're playing Billie Eilish's Bad Guy, which this is the same thing Bridgerton does. Bridgerton, that is one thing I know about Bridgerton, is they have their, orchestral covers during their ballroom sequences. So it was cute. So then, while Ruby's checking out the painting, the Doctor heads up to the balcony where he meets Rogue. This is a man who's standing up here, watching all exits. He is played by Jonathan Groff, who you might know from Hamilton. And so Rogue is not having any of it while the Doctor tries to pick and poke at him. Rogue is all business, but he also notices that something's different about the Doctor. The Doctor is aware of the anachronisms. The Doctor's clearly not from here. And so they introduce each other. And when the Doctor introduces himself, Rogue asks, "Just the Doctor?" And the Doctor rightfully fires back, "Just Rogue." So, my mind, this might be bad, this might be embarrassing to admit, but I thought Rogue was going to end up being a Time Lord, because earlier this season they had said that Time Lords they don't have normal names. The 15th Doctor had that whole spiel when he was explaining it to Carla, Ruby's mom, where he was like, we don't have normal names, we go by titles. And so I thought Rogue was going to end up being a Time Lord, that had gone rogue or disappeared. But anyways, they decide to take this conversation outside. And while they're outside, the Chulders take the Duchess's place. We see a glimpse of these creatures. They're like bird-like creatures that can shapeshift into whoever they kill. They have to physically touch you and suck your life force out to become you. Which I guess scratch what I said earlier about the mystery of who's the Chulder, because they kill the host. They kill who they shapeshift. So it can't be which one of you is the real, because the real one's dead. And so, while the Doctor and Rogue go for a walk, the Doctor compliments Rogue's appearance, which immediately set off my alarms in my head of, oh, he's attracted to him. Which the Doctor has done all season. He's made plenty of remarks about people being attractive or looking good. And I think it's a very subtle start to this romance that we'll see later in the episode. It's not as outright. It's something how we joke about where Disney censors things for other countries because certain countries have homophobic laws and beliefs. And so we know that some countries censor their LGBT content. And so I thought the Doctor complimenting what he's wearing is a nice subtle, you would compliment a friend on what they're wearing. So that one would slide by the censors. And while on their walk, they find the Duchess's remains. And it's very funny that they both immediately suspect each other, even though they've been with each other for the last however many minutes. And so eventually Rogue pulls a gun on the Doctor and, marches him off to his ship. And the Doctor makes the fun remark of, "This isn't a good look for you in any century," which is very funny, especially with, I'm sure they had it planned out, but especially with last week's episode, to then bring it back up again was pretty funny. And that's where Rogue basically explains what he's been doing. He tells the Doctor that these are creatures called Chulder, and he's been hunting them. He is a bounty hunter who hunts these interdimensional, intergalactic beings. And so he takes the Doctor to his ship, which the Doctor and Rogue comment about their ships before we see them, and we know what the TARDIS looks like, and we know that's not what the TARDIS actually, like, it's stuck like that. It's not actually a police box. And so it's always fun to see what Doctor Who does with the ships in this show, because Rogue's ship is literally like a giant bird. At least it looks like a big eagle. And I loved it so much. And that's where, again, while they're getting in the ship, we cut back to the Chulder. And they start talking about the wedding, that, I want to look like her for the wedding. And like I said earlier, this is where we learn they're cosplaying Bridgerton. And is it really cosplay, or is it more like LARP? You see, cosplay, as the episode explains, is where you dress up as a character that you want to look like. And you might get into character, and you might pretend to be that character. But LARPing, if you don't know, is live action roleplay. And that's where you, like in the Galactic Star Cruiser, for example, wrapping it back to that Jenny Nicholson video. LARPing is where you pretend like you're in character, you are your own unique character, or you are in a role-playing situation where you would say, I'm the Doctor, you're going to be Ruby, and we're going to pretend we're stuck in 19th century England. Things like that. And so I think what the Chulder are doing here is actually more akin to LARP than cosplay. But they do provide an interesting commentary on cosplay, as I'll touch on a little later. And we learn that the main female, I don't think any of them actually get names, unless I just totally missed that. But the one who's impersonating the Duchess says that she wants Ruby's appearance for the wedding. So then we cut back to Rogue and the Doctor on Rogue's ship, where we learn that he plans to kill the Doctor. He has this sort of device that is a teleporter, and he has it set up to teleport you to this machine that kills you. And so the Doctor's, oh no. And during this, the Doctor's messing with and psychoanalyzing Rogue, trying to learn things about him. Like, for example, Rogue has a set of D&D dice on his, desk, on his table. To which then the Doctor points out, Rogue's not really your name, huh? You got it from D&D. And Rogue's, very clever, which I thought that was funny. It's such a nerdy, geeky thing, but it really does make the mystery of where Rogue comes from, because, I don't know. I don't think Rogue is of Earth with that revelation, or at least not from present day, definitely way in the future, because to think that Rogue is I guess Rogue is a real name, especially, it really helped after watching X-Men, that, Rogue is just a name people can have. But then the Doctor starts using the sonic to mess with the radio, which I liked that scene a lot. I prefer when the sonic is used in those kind of methods, when it is simply used to scan things or to mess with electronics, open and close doors, things like that. I didn't love how in the 60th, the 14th Doctor could, literally physically create, energy beams with his screwdriver, how he created the wall, or how he, made the chalkboard to write his notes. I don't like it when the sonic is used like that. I much prefer the sonic being a screwdriver, a TV remote, to say the least. And so then the Doctor pulls out all his cards. He uses the psychic paper, which I always kind of forget about. It's not consistently used every episode. For those of you who are new to Doctor Who, the psychic paper is, as it implies, a psychic piece of paper that basically shows you whatever the Doctor needs you to see so that he can continue about his day. So, if he walks into an FBI agency, he'll hold it up and it'll say, like, oh, he's a plumber here to fix the pipes. It's never always exactly the answer the Doctor needs at the moment, but it gets him in. And so this time the psychic paper says, you're hot. And the Doctor is flustered. Rogue is caught off guard. And they kind of have that back and forth of like, are you calling me hot? Or are you saying you yourself are hot? Do you want me to call you hot? And it was a cute little flirty moment with these two. And I'm thinking because the psychic paper is linked to the Doctor or whoever's looking at it, that it was just projecting their feelings about each other, which is fun. And so then Rogue is still going to kill the Doctor, still thinks he's a Cholder. And so the Doctor pulls out what was maybe a questionable thing to do for fans, but in the moment makes sense. He, hits the scanner and it reveals he's not a Cholder, he's a Time Lord. And during which, using some questionable CGI, they definitely used some awkward face scans for some Doctors. But it shows, like, in a revolving image around him, all of his past faces, all the past Doctors. They're not in any kind of order for whatever reason. They are just kind of thrown about. But something interesting during this is that we see the Jo Martin fugitive Doctor, which we know she exists. We don't know where in the Doctor's life she takes place. I, like I said, believe pre-Hartnell. And she was erased, when the Doctor was factory reset at Hartnell. But we also see Richard E. Grant, which might have a lot of people questioning what in the world is Mr. Richard E. Grant doing here. And this is because in 2003, Richard E. Grant voiced an animated version of what the BBC and Doctor Who was treating as the Ninth Doctor. This was, of course, before the 2005 series even existed, so Christopher Eccleston hadn't been cast yet. And so Richard E. Grant has always, it's still, especially with this cameo now, a lot of people have disregarded it as non-canon. Now he's in there. So I guess, I don't know, it is a bit strange that it's there and that the Doctor has never acknowledged it. It's almost like he just looked like that for that one adventure, you could say. But then it's, did he regenerate into Eccleston? Because we see, I guess we don't definitively see the War Doctor regenerate into Eccleston. But it does create a bit of a hole in canon, but Doctor Who's never had a clear, solid canon, like, let's be honest. The 1996 movie infers that the Doctor's half human, which has never been addressed. Now the Doctor's not even a Time Lord. Now they're the Timeless Child. And so there is just, it was just a fun, cute little cameo. I'm sure they will never expand upon or explain it again. Don't think on it too hard. But with this is where Rogue is impressed. Rogue is surprised to see a Time Lord. I don't even know if he really understands what the Doctor is. The Doctor says, like, I am a much higher, more powerful being that you can't understand. So then, I showed you mine, now you show me yours. They go over to the TARDIS. And Rogue thinks it's a shed, it's the same thing, it's the same gimmick everybody has, the bigger on the inside. I did love Jonathan Groff's, like, whoa, or whatever the yell he makes when he goes in to the TARDIS. It was very, it sold the moment of Rogue being impressed. And during all this, the Doctor is singing Pure Imagination from Willy Wonka, which is just a cute little, this Doctor's having fun with this moment. And during all this, the Doctor, is showing Rogue the TARDIS and explaining the Time Lords. And he offers Rogue, that maybe someday I'll take you to Gallifrey. Which I thought, made me question because Gallifrey's been destroyed again, unfortunately. And so I'm just wondering what the Doctor's thoughts were. Like, would he just take him to the ruins of Gallifrey? Does the Doctor... We haven't seen the Doctor do it yet, of being able to go back in time to when Gallifrey was okay. You know, the Doctor has never done that. I don't remember the series well enough if they gave an explanation for, like, why the Doctor can't go back to when Gallifrey was okay. It probably is just a don't mess with your own time / species, whatever. But it was a cute moment, and you can definitely sense the feelings coming on, as you'll see in a moment here. Because then the Doctor agrees to help with the Chulder, but he refuses to kill them. He says, like, instead, your little teleporter thing that sends them to the machine that kills them, instead, we're going to have it send them to a random parallel dimension that's empty. You know, there's nothing there. There's no one for them to kill, no one for them to harm. So then this is where the actors really get to shine, as the Doctor and Rogue bond over their kind of shared trauma over losing traveling partners. You know, Rogue, again, with that whole censorship thing of we can't be straight up gay because we'll get banned in certain countries. Rogue ambiguously insinuates that he's lost his partner during his travels. That he lost someone he was assumedly romantically involved with. And when he asks the Doctor says, I've lost all of them. You know, he has. He's lost dozens of companions. He's lost the love of his life, River Song. You know, she died in the library. And so Rogue is just like, oh God, don't you just want to give up on it all? And the Doctor has a pretty Doctor response of, we have to live each day because they can't. The Doctor has to go on because it's what his companions and River would want. They wouldn't want him to stop because he's lost them. And so, funny enough, then after talking about how I've lost everybody around me dies, the Doctor invites Rogue. Come join Ruby and I in the TARDIS. And to that, Rogue says, well, why don't you come join me in my ship? And I really wanted them both. I wanted one of them to go with the other. And they even say, you know, the Doctor makes the cute remark of, let's argue across the stars. I do think Rogue would make a fun companion. I think he's going to be very similar to the purpose of River Song during the Matt Smith era, where we're not going to get him in the TARDIS every episode, every season. I could see him showing back up either next season or in season 3, where I say season 3, the third season of Ncuti Gatwa, that's what, season 16? But I could see him popping up as a sort of half companion, you know. He goes with the Doctor on this journey and then he leaves. And then he comes back later. But during this, the two, it is clear they have romantic feelings for each other as they almost kiss before an alarm starts to go off. And I wanted to address this because romance with the Doctor has always been tricky. The fandom always goes back and forth on if they want the Doctor to be romantic. You know, many people feel he should be a stoic, asexual being. But we've clearly seen from the RTD2 era that between the 14th and 15th Doctor, the Doctor does have these attractions to people. And we've seen the Doctor be romantic before. He kisses Grace in the movie, the 8th Doctor does. 9 and 10 had feelings for Rose. 13 had feelings for Yaz. And so we know that the Doctor is not heartless. They're not a heartless being. They do love, and they do have compassion. It does get tricky with the companions. It does kind of question the age gap / the appropriateness of it. Like having Rose Tyler, who's 19, being romantically involved with the Doctor, who's like 900 years old. But I don't know. I am not against the Doctor having... I love the Doctor and River. I think their romance is beautiful. And so I do think Rogue, like I just said, fits that River category, where Rogue is some kind of being that is smart enough, mature enough, knows what the Doctor is to then still have those romantic feelings. And may or may not die. I don't know. There is the argument that it's not fair for the humans who fall in love with the Doctor, because they'll die and he'll continue on. But yeah, romance has always been tricky in Doctor Who, but I think this one works. And so this is where the Doctor has his revelation of the Chulder are here cosplaying Bridgerton. They love drama and scandal. And I thought it was funny because they get to the point where they literally are bending the events of the story into their narrative, their role play. And I thought it almost served, they're going to have a wedding and they're going to kill everybody. And anybody who doesn't fit the role, they'll just kill and replace. And I thought this was a bit of a commentary on the dangers of getting too wrapped up in cosplay / role play. For example, at cons with cosplay, there are boundaries. There are boundaries people need to learn. Some people don't respect their boundaries. They think that this person is dressed up as a sexy Twi'lek, and so I can take pictures of them and touch them. And it's, no, that person did not give you consent to take their picture or touch them. You have to ask them. And so I don't know, maybe I'm stretching there, but that came to my mind when they were talking about how these creatures go to these planets, they pretend to be these characters, and then they ruin everybody, they kill everybody on the planet, they kill everybody at the party, and they make the party their own. They make it the wedding, because that's what the season finale of Bridgerton is all leading to. And so, like I just said, the Chulder love drama and scandal, and so what better scandal in the 1800s than to have the Doctor and Rogue dance together. Of course, you've got the, everybody's aghast, and the Chulder are eating it up. They are loving it. And it's very cute, I do think they purposely planned this episode for Pride Month because of all of this with the Doctor and Rogue. They wanted to hold this till June. And to really top off the show, they fake a proposal. And, the Doctor's all, you scandalous man, I could never marry you. And Rogue really sells it, he gets down on his knees and takes one of his rings and offers it to the Doctor. And the Doctor hesitates. I think it gets way too real for both him and Rogue. Rogue is uncomfortable. Rogue has the secondhand embarrassment of I am not an actor. But he goes for it, and the Doctor hesitates with the ring. And the Doctor ultimately does take the ring, but you can see on Ncuti Gatwa's face, and this is where the performance comes in again, that Ncuti Gatwa was so good at performing this conflicted and maybe a little broken Doctor that, he portrays like he's the happy, trauma-free Doctor, but he's not. And so he takes the ring and storms off, and that's where they go into the garden where they encounter the Chulder. Again, wrapping back to the cosplay thing, I thought it was funny that all the Chulder start to fight over who wants to be the Doctor. They're all, I want to be the Doctor. No, I'm the Doctor. I call being the Doctor, it's like children, fighting. No, I want to be Spider-Man. You were Spider-Man last time. And so, again, I thought it was a bit of a cosplay commentary where everybody wants to be the Doctor when they cosplay for Doctor Who. Myself included. Because I met the Series 5 cast of Doctor Who back in 2022. So that is Matt, Karen, Arthur, and Alex. River, the Doctor, Rory, and Amy. And who did I dress up as? I could have dressed up as any of them. Cosplay is not limited by body shape, gender, sexuality, anything like that. I could dress up as any of them, and who did I dress up as? I did a closet cosplay of the Doctor. If you're not familiar with that term, a closet cosplay is a costume you put together using only items from your own closet or very cheaply thrifted. You're not building anything. You're not buying big, elaborate, expensive costumes. It's cheap, simple cosplay. So that was my, closet cosplay of the Doctor's, purple suit that he has near the end of his run. And, it was also an interesting commentary because with everybody wanting to cosplay the Doctor, I think it's also because the Doctor is a special character in that anyone can be the Doctor. The Doctor doesn't wear anything, despite their gender, that is, gender specific. We're like, oh my goodness, I, a man, could never wear the 13th Doctor's outfit. No, she wears a little rainbow striped shirt, some suspenders, and a coat. Anybody can wear either gender. Same thing as a woman could wear what the 14th Doctor or Shurigawa's Doctor wears. I think the Doctor is in that unique spot where the outfits are iconic enough that you'll recognize who they are, man or woman. Anyone can be the Doctor. Which is an important message. It makes everybody feel included. And now, after however many minutes this has been, it's funny how much I have sat here and talked about the Cholder and their cosplaying / role-playing implications when they're really not the the focus of this episode, in my opinion, is Rogue and the Doctor's relationship. So, inevitably, Rogue and the Doctor get away from the Cholder. And we cut back, you might have noticed I haven't been talking about Ruby. That's because Ruby has been kind of inconsequential. This whole episode, she's been walking around with a girl named Emily, who's been Ruby's been blowing her mind, talking about the future and stuff like that. And we learned that Emily was a Cholder all along. And so we see Emily attack Ruby, attempting to become her, which we know will kill Ruby. And then we cut away, back to the Doctor and Rogue setting their trap. And when the Doctor sees what he believes is a Cholder impersonating Ruby, it breaks him. He immediately ditches the plan and goes to find her. And he doesn't find her because, I think it's a little frustrating because you are just like, ugh, Doctor, if you'd just have gone in the room, you would see it's Emily's body, not Ruby, because Ruby did overpower Emily, that we learn later in the episode. Obviously you wouldn't want to go see your friend like that, to his credit. And so the Doctor, it flashes back to him telling Carla that he will keep Ruby safe, which of course haunts him because he believes he's failed that promise. And this is where the Doctor goes dark. And I love when the Doctor goes dark. I do love when the Doctor is, the heartfelt, loving being who would never harm a fly. But there are times when shit gets real. And so the Doctor asks Rogue, how long is it going to send him? And he's like, it's going to send him, it'll take him 600 years. And the Doctor goes, good. Long time to suffer. As with every episode, the Doctor cries, clearly because he thinks his friend's been murdered. So the Doctor captures all the Cholder in the trap, including what he thinks is the Ruby Cholder, we learn. And that's when Ruby's like, hey, no, I'm alive. It's the real me. And we learn it's because she kicked Emily's ass, using the earrings. And so Ruby is stuck in the gate that will transport them to this barren dimension. And Rogue is willing to sacrifice Ruby to the Cholder, which I think would maybe put a bit of a kink in him and the Doctor's relationship, which might be a point when Rogue eventually comes back. We know he's coming back. But Rogue asks him, can you lose your friend to save the world? Because he's saying, the Cholder are going to kill everybody, including Ruby anyways. So, send her, get rid of the Cholder. And the Doctor can't do it. He tells Rogue no to the, can you lose your friend to save the world? And Rogue understands this. We don't know much about Rogue, but we know he lost his partner hunting the Cholder. So I'm sure he knows that. He saw how the Doctor got when he thought Ruby was dead. So Rogue ultimately kisses the Doctor. And good for them. Happy Pride, everybody. I'm sure it'll make a lot of losers on the internet mad. So then what Rogue does is Rogue basically tackles Ruby out of the trap because it just needs a form of matter in that place. So Rogue tackles Ruby, knocks her out of the trap, and takes her spot. And that's when he tells the Doctor, "Find me." And he, pushes the button, activates it, and sends himself and the shoulder off into who knows where. And I was sad to see him go, but at the same time, this is Doctor Who. He will come back. He's not going to die. He will be back at some point. But maybe not. Maybe I'm maybe I'm just lying to myself. And maybe this is the end of Rogue. It is just an example of another person giving their life for the Doctor or the Doctor's happiness by sacrificing himself for Ruby. That would actually be pretty dark if Rogue never comes back. Yikes, hopefully that doesn't come to bite me in the ass. And so then, in the aftermath of all this, the Doctor, is clearly heartbroken, but he can't portray that to Ruby. He can't let anybody know. And so he pretends not to care. He's like, "Oh yeah, I parked Rogue's ship by the moon," and Ruby's like, "Aren't we gonna go get him?" And the Doctor's like, "No, we can't, There are as many dimensions as there are atoms, Well, oh well, where are we going to go next? And, he's clearly masking the pain of losing this man that he fell in love with in a mere few hours. And Ruby sees right through that, She's like, "Stop, you don't have to be okay. Like, it's okay to not be okay." And the Doctor says, "I have to be like this because this is what I'm like, I'm constantly moving forward. I'm moving on. Going upwards. It's fine. Onwards." And, I kind of viewed it as, are these the fandom expectations of the Doctor? Yes, the universe has these expectations of the Doctor, and the Doctor clearly has these expectations of himself, that I don't have time. Kind of like the problem we had with 14, the reason 14 came back, because I don't have time to solve my own grief, my own problems. And that's where, 14 came back to solve his grief and issues with Donna, his unresolved trauma. And so I also, like I said, feel like it's a little bit of the fan expectations. The fandom expects the Doctor to be this stoic, asexual being, when no, he does fall in love. He does lose people, and it does break him. And so Ruby is able to pull him back out of that, and it's okay. And at the very end of the episode, I knew it was coming because this Doctor wears jewelry. The Doctor still has the ring that Rogue gave him. And so he slides it on his finger, and it does, put a smile on his face as the episode ends. Giving that Doctor that spark of hope that Rogue is out there somewhere. And so that was the episode. I have spent a long time talking about this episode compared to the others. But I guess I just really enjoyed it. I really liked the Rogue and Doctor's relationship. I really liked the commentary on cosplay and roleplay. If anything, this was a very Ruby-light episode. Ruby was basically just there to be the, oh no, she died at the end. But I think this episode ended up better than any of the theories online. For example, we knew that Jonathan Groff had been casted in this mystery role, and we had seen, screenshots and still images and clips of this episode. We knew Jonathan Groff was playing this, bounty hunter type. We saw the scene with him holding the gun up to the Doctor. And many people thought he was going to be Jack Harkness, recast from John Barrowman. Of course, that didn't end up being what happened. Instead, he was an all-original character, which was probably for the better. I think we can let Jack Harkness rest. After seeing him in Torchwood, he's popped up here and there. I think we've run our course with Jack Harkness. And then I wanted to tell you about my own crazy theory before the episode. This might be embarrassing. Maybe I shouldn't admit this. But RTD, before the episode, had posted a picture on Instagram of Jonathan Groff as Rogue. And in the caption, he, just said Rogue. And then he put 2 hearts, a red and a pink heart. And I told my friend Phil that this is my crazy, absolute, Like, this is not going to happen, but could you imagine if it did? Of what if Rogue was actually a regeneration of River Song, So then you could have husband and wife, reunited, but now they're husband and husband. Because we do know River was like half Time Lord after being being exposed to the TARDIS. And she had a limited number of regenerations. We saw 3 of them, but who knows? You could argue that Rogue comes before or after River. But that was just my crazy theory. It was because of all the hints of, like, bringing back Susan and the Susan twist of it and the Miss Flood that I was just like, what if they just totally blindside us here? Obviously they didn't. That was just my crazy crackpot theory. The performances in this episode. This episode is pretty much, like I said, carried by Nishitagawa and Jonathan Groff's performance. I think they had good chemistry, They don't, like I said, they don't spend a lot of time together, I'm sure in the episode it's supposed to have been hours that they've spent at this ball trying to solve this issue. For us, it's 45 minutes. But I felt that relationship, and I was sad to see Jonathan Groff go at the end. And I hope to see him in the future. I hope Rogue returns. One last thing I wanted to touch about, because this episode has an interesting backstory when it comes to the writing. Fun fact, back in 2021, when Disney was airing the first season of Loki, Russell T Davies took to social media to criticize Disney for claiming that, Loki is bi representation, when all Loki we see do is date and kiss women. And so, yeah, real bi representation. And then at the time, the director and producer of Loki, Kat Herron, came out and, defended the show and was like, listen, it's Disney. We can only get so gay, because they are restrictive. We'll get banned in certain countries. And so then, what Russell T Davies and Kate went and did? Kate is a co-writer on this episode. You can see where the threads all come together, where they then teamed up and they said, what if we wrote the gayest episode of Doctor Who ever, and then forced them to air it on Disney+. And that's exactly what they did. The Doctor is bi, kisses a man. We've seen the Doctor kiss plenty of women. So, happy Pride, everybody. It's just a fun little unique story that I thought was really cool about this episode. So, Series 14, Episode 6. There's 2 episodes left. They are our 2-part finale. I'm not even going to speculate what's going to happen. Who knows? This show continues to surprise me, as we've seen with this week. Let me know what you think of Rogue down in the comments below. If you liked what you saw here and want to see more, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell so you know when that next one's coming. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.